What family secret has been kept away from only you, and how did you find out about it? Story 1. I burned down the backyard and everyone knew it was me. I was 7-8, no babysitter, experimenting with matches and cotton. It's flammable BTW. Started a backyard grass fire, no hose. Called mom crying that hobos threw lit matches over the fence, and I tried to extinguish it. For 22 years they let me believe I'd gotten away with it. They believed me. Mom faked a babysitter, neighbors whispered, but it all died down. Turns out this whole freaking time they've known I burnt down the yard. The firemen knew it, neighbors, parents. They just let me believe it and kept it a hilarious inside joke amongst themselves. Until one night I go to admit it. My most important confession. Decades-old confession. They cackled with laughter. Story 2. I don't know if it quite counts as a family secret, but here goes. We had a cockroach problem when I was a kid. We kept putting down traps, spraying crap around the house, never could figure out where they were coming from. Time rolls around. They decide I need a new mattress for my waterbed. We drain it. My dad goes to pull up the mattress and starts loudly freaking out. Now, I was in a separate room, so they thought I didn't hear ... but the roach nest was under my waterbed mattress. It had a pinhole leak which created the perfect environment, apparently. Since I wasn't in the room, all I was told is that something went wrong when he was draining it and water sprayed everywhere. But I heard them talking quietly about how that must be why I had so many sleeping problems, having cockroaches crawling on me while I was asleep. I try not to think about it often. Edit. It occurs to me you guys are probably picturing those giant kind of cockroaches you always see in movies and whatnot. I'm in a more rural area, and the roaches here are significantly smaller, maybe a quarter to half inch at the most. Might make it slightly less. Ike. Story 3. My mom and dad split up when I was about 4. From 4 until about 12, I had conversations with him over the phone. Wanted to go visit but wasn't allowed because I was too young ... but my brother had been to visit when he was my age. Turns out that dad was found getting sexually inappropriate with me, which is why I was never allowed to visit. I don't remember it, but it explains a lot of personal quirks. And all of my family know, but no one would talk about it until I was 12, and I directly asked my mom questions she couldn't avoid. The thing that pisses me off about it most is that they let me spend more time exposed to him without making sure I knew he was dangerous. Story 4. Very often parents do things around their young kids thinking the children are too young to comprehend them. While that's true, what they don't realize is that children store those memories away, and at some point, they'll replay the memories when they're old enough to fully understand what they witnessed. When I was 8, my mom took me on vacation and we stayed at a motel in Florida. My dad stayed home to work. The owner of the motel was a friendly man, and every evening my mom would leave me alone in the room watching cartoons while she hung out with the nice man. He drove us back to the airport and she gave him a very warm and prolonged goodbye hug. I didn't think anything of it until it hit me at around 15. Story 5. My cousin is adopted, but for years we were told not to mention it because she didn't know. I was talking about it with my dad one day because I couldn't believe she didn't know. During the conversation, he let it slip that my older sister was conceived using donor sperm. After a moment, he added that I was also conceived using donor sperm. Our 2 younger siblings, however, were not, and were completely unexpected. It turns out that my older sister knew, but that my mom made both my sister and dad promise not to tell me. I'm not entirely sure why I wasn't supposed to know, but they managed to keep it a secret until I was 22. I'm 23 now. Story 6. I have 2 adopted cousins, one male and the other female. My aunt and uncle couldn't have kids, so they adopted. I was told not to mention it because, as far as my mom knew, they didn't know. Here in MX we had a TV ad for some salted crackers that had a whole Mexican family eating, and among them was a little Chinese boy who asked if he was adopted. Everyone on the table stared awkwardly and changed the topic by asking to pass the crackers and commenting on how good they tasted, etc., and even the adopted kid got distracted. Well, on Saturdays we used to get together for family meals, just like the ad, and one day, my cousin just blurts out with the straightest face, "Okay, so tell me the truth, am I adopted?" Silence. Then my cousin just started to laugh and asked for the crackers like in the ad, and everyone bursts in laughter and continue with the ad script. Turns out they knew the entire time. In retrospective, they totally look adopted. My cousin's hair, nose, height, eyes and other traits are unique and no one in my family has them. Same with my cousin. His skin color is dark brown, nose, eyes and other traits are like your stereotypical Mexican, and no one in the family is that way. Now it's a running joke every time we get together. Story 7. My father's siblings and their families don't talk to us anymore since my grandmother's, their mom, passing in 2009. It was told that they were just too busy working and doing their own thing to hang out like we all used to. But on the off chance I would see them, I would always be the first and only one to say hi and try and catch up. About the time I was 18 in 2014, I am currently 22. I was told that the reason they didn't talk to us anymore is that they turned their backs on my grandmother when she was dying and about to lose her house. So my father stepped up and tried to convince his siblings to help save the house and help with the medical bills. They turned their backs on her and my father, so my father ended up buying the house and restored it. When my grandmother passed, my father's siblings tried to claim their piece of mom's money even though they didn't do anything for her when she was dying. They refused to associate with my father, mother, sister, and me to this day. Edit 1. Holy crap, I never expected to see so many similar stories like mine. If I have any advice for anyone reading this who is going through something similar or think they may go through something similar, it's to get everything in writing. Bank statements, medical bills, receipts, even a written statement of the family member you are helping stating they are okay with the terms of the situation you find yourself in. Story 8. I had two. The first was that my grandfather I grew up with was not my biological grandfather. I learned this in my early 30s after he had passed. My grandmother told me the night of his wake that he never got over his anger at the Catholic Church for refusing to marry them since she had already been married once. When I responded, "Wait, what?" she replied, "Oh, you didn't know that Papa wasn't your biological grandfather? I guess you just learned something about yourself today." The second secret I learned just 2 months ago, that Grandma's first husband also was not my biological grandfather. My mother was actually the product of an affair. I learned that one via an Ancestry.com DNA test. My biological grandfather and uncle coincidentally took the test as well and popped up as closely related. My new uncle then contacted me, thinking he had solved a different family mystery of his own, another story altogether, and I asked my mom if she knew anything about the family. When my mom asked my grandma, my mom didn't know this either. My grandma spilled the beans. My biological grandfather also didn't know. He's an interesting guy. My biological uncle is very nice, and everyone is now cool with it. My mom is going to talk with her newly found brother next weekend. Hello, the editor here. That last story was too cool. Like and subscribe for more. Story 9. Apparently my great aunt or something like that ran away with an American soldier back in the days. She was engaged and on a pre-marriage trip with her fiancé, and while in Germany she met an American soldier and ran away with him. Left her fiancé in Germany to travel back home alone and tell her family that she had eloped. My family cut her off and never spoke to her again. Then, when she was older, she came back home, penniless with her children staying in the US, and wanted to live with her widowed mother who was living on a very small pension. Don't know what happened to her after her mother died. I found out about this last summer at a family gathering. Not sure why they decided to talk about it. Story 10. My grandmother was the illegitimate daughter of a state assemblyman. I thought that was almost kind of cool until I found out that he marked her as dead on her birth certificate and likely never acknowledged her until her mother and sisters were killed, probably in a flu epidemic. Then he took her into his home, where she worked as a maid for his cruel wife and their children until she met my grandfather at a barn dance and could finally leave the house. She was the sweetest, most generous small-town lady out there. I would never have known she had a difficult life in her youth. She never talked about it, and I don't think even her own children knew the whole story until she was in her 90s and genealogy became a hobby for someone in the extended family. I sure do miss her. Story 11. I found out that the people I thought were my parents were actually my grandparents. My actual birth mother, the person I was raised to believe was my eldest sister, got pregnant at 14 and had me. She basically wasn't ready, prepared for raising me apparently, and my grandparents adopted me and literally raised me as one of their own. They're my mom and dad and always will be. I was around 10 when I found out. The way I found out about was during a fight between my parents. Drinks were involved and there was a lot of shouting. I was trying to get them to calm down and stop screaming at each other, and Dad let slip, "Well, why don't you go ask your real mother in town where she lives?" Not gonna lie, the way he said it, filled with venom, hurt. He fricked off then and just left me and Mom to talk about it. My mom told the whole deal then. She mentioned that my sciator wanted so little to do with me one night that she literally left me on the doorstep and walked over me to go on a night out. Apparently, the rest of my mom's family didn't approve of her taking me in, and for that, and a few other reasons, we moved across the country for a fresh start. We don't really talk to them anymore for unrelated reasons. They're not nice people. My sister also has another kid, someone I thought was my nephew but was actually my half-brother. We were basically raised like brothers. We used to play with my action figures and make elaborate plots and characters that would go on for days, something I still miss, to be honest. But I don't get to see him much more since our family doesn't really talk to each other much. I know my birth father's name, but I don't really have any desire to meet him. I'm told that he was a bit of a player and that I probably have a few more half-brothers all around the country. Well, that's my family secret, thanks to anyone who read it. Feels better to get that off my chest a bit. Story 12. When my health started doing poorly, I asked my mom if we had anything going on in the family related to uterus, and she snapped at me saying, "I don't know anyone that has any major pain because of periods. Maybe it's just you." I was forced to move out not long after, despite not being able to attend work regularly enough and having trouble with money because of it. A year later, I learned from my aunt that she has endometriosis. One of their sisters had fibromas. She also informed me about an aunt on my dad's side that also had a lot of problems with cysts and endo. The aunt I was talking to is very disliked by my dad because of her health problems. He's always seen her as pathetic and weak. That's why nobody helped me out. I confronted my parents about it. I was told that if I needed help so bad I could go see my aunts. I was later forbidden to talk about my health in the family home because it would make my dad super angry. I'm still in a blind rage about it. I can't even explain why they didn't tell me, and how the frick could they have been so selfish and gross. Edit. Wow, thanks so much for the support. It feels good to feel I wasn't wrong to think my parents' actions were a little off. Trying to keep up with the comments, my app is blowing up. Lol. Story 13. My oldest sister was assaulted by our uncle that we used to visit and play with all the time. She was 11 and she didn't tell anyone until she was 16, and she only broke because my mom found her bloody razor blade. I found out when I was around 10 minutes 11, about 3 minutes 4 years later, because she kept an online recovering journal. On top of that, I found out that my oldest sister watched my mom almost kill herself in the bathroom. Our bedroom door didn't always close all the way, and my sister could see through the cracks. I read that in the journal too. Story 14. My oldest sister has a beautiful little boy and a very loving wife. She's disabled because she spent the rest of her teenage years and young adult life working with severely autistic and mentally impaired people who were violent, and she got hurt while restraining them. Her spine's all sorts of freaked up, and though we about an hour away, we have a pretty good relationship with her. She has a strained relationship with my mom, but my mom loves her and her grandson. It's a life full of bads and goods. Story 15. I have a half-brother that turned out to be a child intercourse offender and is currently in jail. He's older than me. My sister told me when she found out after talking to my dad about previous experiences with couples, partners. He alluded to the fact I may have an older brother because he didn't wear protection all that much, but didn't confirm nor deny his existence. My whole family knows at this point, obviously, but I kinda freaked out. I won't end up the same though. Edit. Holy crap, these responses about my last statement are killing me. Thanks for the laughs, guys. Story 16. My parents forged my birth certificate and lied to me about my actual birth date until I was a teen. When I was close to kindergarten age, my parents found out that I was born 2 weeks too late to be able to attend kindergarten. I was born on September 15th and the cutoff was September 1st. To them this was unacceptable because they thought I was ready, and another year of preschool and entering kindergarten at almost 6 was too late. They photocopied my birth certificate, covered the number 5 from 15 with whiteout, made a copy of the now fake birth certificate, and took to a family friend who notarized it for a good sum of money. The elementary school had no clue it was a fake, so I got to start school early, and from then on they celebrated my birthday with me on the 1st in order to keep me from spilling the secret as a kid. I didn't find out until turning 15 and applying for my driver's license permit. Obviously it's a crime to forge documents like this, especially for something like a driver's license. So on our way to the DMV, my mom rather anticlimactically hands me my paperwork and real birth certificate and waited for my reaction. It was kind of a shock, and 16 years later I still say a little happy birthday to myself on my now fake birthday. As far as school goes, no one ever found out, and I ended up being homeschooled in high school anyway and getting my Jed, and that's my big fat felony secret. Oh, also I found out by eavesdropping that my mom faked her knee surgery when I was 14 and actually got a chest job, but that was the worst kept secret. She went from tiny to porn star big. Okay mom. I did have fun though watching her pretend to limp with an ace bandage on her knee when in actuality it was her chest hurting. Edit. Wow, so apparently my parents are far from the only ones who have done this.